The headline of the morning: arrests of families entering the United States illegally in the last 5 months has hit a record. The chief of the Customs and Border Protection Agency says the system is now, quote, at the breaking point. From October through February, border agents arrested, are you ready for this? 136,000 people traveling in families, crossing the border illegally, not even trying to avoid the Border Patrol. They're looking for the Border Patrol. And as soon as they see them, they start reading the script and the talking points about asylum. Almost all of them come from Guatemala, Honduras, or El Salvador. And the U.S. accommodates them, and there is now, I believe, a backlog of over 800,000 pending cases looking into asylum. Let's get to the core of this with one of the preeminent authorities on immigration in the United States. Very proud to have with us Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us this morning, Mark.
Sure, happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
You were probably not surprised. In fact, I think you predicted that we would be seeing more and more people growing, but the number of families who were trying to get into the United States has now increased 50% in 1 month alone. We are at an 11-year high. What's going on?
What's going on is that we have incentivized this illegal immigration from Central America through various loopholes in our laws, so that if you come with a kid, we basically let you go, because the Congress has left in place a judicial settlement that says minors can't be detained for more than 20 days. So that the alternative is splitting the family up, letting the kid go and keeping the parents in detention. That kind of blew up politically, so we now let the parents go with the kids. So they all know in Central America, I mean, and they've known for a while now, that if you bring a kid with you, you're let go. And if you hire a smuggler, maybe you live here illegally, you hire a smuggler to bring your kid with you that you left behind with grandma, and then the kid says, hi, I'm an unaccompanied child, and reads that script. He is then delivered to you, even if you're illegal, at U.S. taxpayer expense. So those kind of incentives guarantee that you're going to have more and more people taking advantage of it. And like you said, they're not avoiding the Border Patrol. They're not even just flagging down Border Patrol agents. If they don't find one, the smugglers have told them where the office is, and they go to the Border Patrol office and knock on the door and ask to turn themselves in. I mean, it's absurd, and this record is going to be broken again. This is going to get worse and worse until Congress plugs these loopholes.
Why aren't the loopholes plugged? Who has tried, and what has happened?
Democrats have refused to do it. They voted against efforts last year to plug some of these loopholes.
What is their argument?
Well, their position is this is a flow of refugees. They are fleeing violence in Central America, except that violence, the homicide rate has been declining steadily in Central America. I'm not saying it's a great place, but violence has been going down just as immigration from there has been going up. Also, these people who read the asylum script and who make the first cut, it's called a credible fear interview, very low bar. Basically, as long as you don't say that Mickey Mouse is talking to you through your dental work, you get through that first bar. Then you're released to apply for asylum. Half the people who were released never even bothered to apply. It was just a lie to get past the Border Patrol. And of the other half that do go through the paperwork, they're mainly doing it in order to get a work permit, because after 6 months you get a work permit, and almost none of them actually get asylum at the end of the process. This whole thing is just a ruse.
It's a game
for illegal immigration. And the Democrats, I think, genuinely have fallen for it. Most people do what they do because they think it's the right thing to do, and they think that this is a genuine flow of refugees, and it's not.
You're crediting them with too much good faith, because I know that Customs and Border Protection Agency officials and ICE officials, Department of Homeland Security, have all testified before Congress telling them, hey, this is a game. Do you understand what's going on here? You have Brian Hastings, the Chief of Law Enforcement Operations, who says the word of mouth, I'm quoting him here, the word of mouth and social media quickly gets back to those in the Northern Triangle countries of El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala. If you bring a child, you will be successful. So now they all show up with their kids.
Yeah, and this has been building for several years. 2014 is when it kind of got attention in the news for the first time. I sent down a team to South Texas. One of my guys is a Pulitzer Prize-winning former reporter, has lived in Mexico, speaks Spanish. So he went down, and he actually talked to these people who were being let go at the bus station in McAllen, Texas, where Border Patrol literally delivers them to the bus station, arranges for their tickets to be purchased, and puts them on the bus. So he talked to one of these women from Guatemala. She and her friend brought their kids, and they came. And she told him, we were watching CNN back home in Guatemala, and they said that if you brought a kid with you, you'd be let go. And then someone in our town did that and, called back on the phone and said it worked. And so we figured, okay, let's take a chance. Word gets back. It's not even a grapevine. As soon as they get back, not only do they call back, what I've heard now is that they're posting pictures on Facebook and Instagram of the paper that they have been given. They call it a permiso that says, show up in 2 years for your hearing. And they're posting it so that people back home know that it's legit, that it's really happening, and the smugglers are having a field day. They're saying, look, this is a real thing. We're not conning you. We're not trying to rip you off. All these people have gotten let go by the Americans. Give me your smuggling fee, and I'll make sure you get to the border, too, and they'll let you go.
I want to reinforce that these people are now arriving by bus, chartered bus. I want also and some people say, well, that's good because then people aren't risking their life trying to hike up there, and it could be very tough and rigorous, and very there could be people who prey on the women and children. But what that also means is a lot of people who are otherwise ill, who are sick, and wouldn't think of trying to make the journey, are now making the journey. Because
the smugglers are in fact bringing them by bus, and in fact they're bringing them by bus up to the border, because there are places in Arizona where the main Mexican highway that connects the country to the rest of Baja to the rest of Mexico is like 20 or 30 feet south of the border. I mean, I've been there, I've seen it. You just see the trucks driving by. They come in buses, they pull off onto the gravel on the side of the road, which is on the U.S. side, and they say, go hop over this. There's a little 3-foot fence there to keep trucks from driving over. They say, hop over that fence, and here's the directions to the Border Patrol. And they do it 50, 100, 200, 300 at a time. This is like what Germany saw 3 or 4 years ago. Remember when they had that million people swarming in who pretended to be Syrian because the prime minister there, basically said anybody can come on in.
Yes.
Our Congress has done the same thing as Angela Merkel did in Germany, and the results are the same.
I would also point out, Mark, and you have pointed this out previously, that a lot of these smugglers will direct these people to kind of remote areas of the border to pull border agents to process them away from areas they're patrolling, which leaves it wide open to drug smugglers.
Yeah, that's part of the point, because if the Border Patrol gets, say, 200 people showing up, they have 2 or 3 agents maybe. They're basically spending the rest of the day processing these people, and they have to get the kids blankets and all of this kind of stuff, and give them food and everything. Well, if those are the only agents in that area, the rest of the border there is wide open. And like you said, drugs, whatever the heck it is. It doesn't matter what they're bringing over. Maybe they're bringing over somebody, a high-value terrorist who wants to come over.
Yeah.
That kind of thing has happened and can happen, and, if the Border Patrol is tied up playing nursemaid to hundreds of people who just showed up on the guarantee that they will be let go and delivered to their relatives, you're leaving the border wide open.
Yeah. I know our time is short here, Mark. Real quickly, if these people had shown up from Mexico, if a bus pulled up to that very same area in remote outposts, Arizona, New Mexico, and these people, instead of being from Guatemala or El Salvador, were from southern Mexico, they would simply be turned back and told, get lost, right?
Yeah, because Mexico takes back its people right away, because it's right there. Mexico doesn't take back third country people, and you can kind of see their point. But they let them through. They wave these people through, and then they say, well, they're not our citizens. You have to fly them back or whatever and get paperwork and all that. We're not just going to take them back. And so this is why Central Americans and others now from even farther away are much more difficult for us to return, especially if they make these phony asylum claims. I went to a detention center in Pennsylvania. There are now Romanian gypsies getting a visa to Canada with a kid, walking across the border into Vermont and New York and doing the same thing, saying, look, we're applying for asylum, and they are also let go. So this is not just Central America now. This is starting to spread to the rest of the world.
And I would ask a question that I think is going to shock a lot of our listeners when they hear the answer, but is the Trump administration on the border doing things any different from the Obama administration?
Some things, but not enough. And, in this respect, you really can't fault the administration, because the core problem here is Congress refusing to plug these loopholes. The administration is begging, and has been, for Congress to fix this problem. They can't do it on their own. Even this emergency declaration, all it does is free up some money from the Defense Department to do some more fence building. But that's not the problem now. First of all, the fence will take months, if not years, to get built, and it's not going to solve the problem, because the reason these people are coming is because of these loopholes in the law that have to be plugged.
And the way to plug them would be, what change would you make in?
There's several changes. We need to raise the standard for that initial cut to asylum, make it harder to pass that. We need to change what's called this judicial ruling I referred to earlier that says you can't hold a minor for more than 20 days. That's not law, but it's a judicial ruling that has to be overturned by Congress. Because if we can hold the parents and the children together and say, you're staying in detention until your case is resolved, the incentive to come across is a whole lot less, because the reason they're coming is because they know they're not going to be detained. Sure. Or if they are, it'll only be for a week or two, and then they'll let them go. And we need more detention space.
You want to check out Mark's great work, CIS.org, just that simple, CIS.org, the Center for Immigration Studies. Mark, it's always great having you here on the John Carlson Show. Thanks again for joining us this morning.
Thank you.